Good evening and welcome to the Daily News Roundup. I am Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in our newscast, Education Minister says do not blame school administration for students' death. Former Education Minister to face the court in alleged corruption case. Jamaica could face stronger and more frequent hurricanes. Man shot and killed in dramatic White House incident. St. James Police probing shooting death of elderly man. And Turks and Caicos appeals for support from Jamaican government in fight against gang-related activities. To begin our newscast, former Education Minister Royal Reid and his co-accused have a case to answer for their alleged corrupt actions. This according to a court ruling that is to be reviewed by the Supreme Court on February 7, 2023. The judicial review date was disclosed this morning when Reid and his co-accused, former Caribbean Maritime University CMU President Fritz Pinnock, Reid's wife, Sharon, their daughter Sherelle, and Jamaica Labour Party councillor Kim Brown Lawrence appeared in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court. Chief Parish Judge Chester Crooks had ruled last February that the accused, who are implicated in a multi-million-dollar fraud case, had a case to answer. The judge's ruling was in response to a preliminary objection raised by Reid and Pinnock on the basis that the charges against them should be nullified as the Financial Investigations Division, FID, which leveled the charges, had no authority in law to arrest or charge them. Reid and Pinnock took issue with the decision after Crooks declared that he was rescuing himself from the trial because of a perceived conflict of interest and sought a judicial review. It was later revealed that the conflict was in relation to the judge's attendance at Monroe College while Reid was head boy. In the meantime, the court was also informed today that the FID has been granted permission to appeal the decision of Supreme Court Justice Andrea Pettigrew Collins, who had ruled that she had no authority to overturn or vary the decision of her colleague, Justice Courtney Day, who had stalled the trial. Justice Day stalled the trial in June 2021 after Reid and Pinnock sought leave for a judicial review of Crooks's decision. One of the FID's main arguments is that halting the proceedings has delayed the preparatory work needed to get the case ready for trial. Reid, Pinnock, and their co-accused were arrested by law enforcement agencies in 2019 in connection with a major fraud and corruption probe by the FID for allegedly diverting public funds from the Ministry of Education and the CMU. The charges include conspiracy to defraud, misconduct in a public office at common law, and breaches of the Proceeds of Crime Act. The Barbados-based Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum, CARICOF, says the region is to expect extreme weather conditions over the next 3 months. It says the transition between wet and dry season is forecast to feature frequent wet days, excessive rainfall, and above-average tropical cyclone activity across the Caribbean region, exacerbated by La Niña. In its latest Caribbean Climate Outlooks publication, CARICOF said this would result in frequent disruptions of outdoor activities and rising water levels in soils, rivers, and reservoirs. In the meantime, Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology at the University of the West Indies and co-director of the Climate Study Group, Professor Tanisha Stevenson, says Jamaica could face hurricanes which are stronger and more frequent than what the country has historically been used to experiencing. Professor Stevenson explains that due to the impact of global warming, such as increased temperatures and more greenhouse gases being released, hurricanes developing over the Atlantic will have greater wind speeds and increased rainfall. She explains that this new behavior is part of the evolution of these types of weather systems. Stevenson notes that while these hurricanes might exceed the power of the various categories under which hurricanes fall, no new category may necessarily be defined to fit the new characteristics. Minister of Education Favour Williams is urging the public not to blame the administration of the Kingston Technical High School for the stabbing death of grade 11 student Michian Campbell. Campbell was stabbed to death by a schoolmate on the school compound last Thursday. Minister Williams said, quote, "We have been hearing stories that there has been a lot of blame going on here. Blaming of teachers and deans of discipline, blaming of everyone, and I want to say to you, it's not the moment to blame. It's the moment for all of us to pause and say, how can we make our school a safer place?" End quote. She added that despite the school having metal detectors and conducting searches, they were not able to prevent the stabbing incident. She shared that her ministry will embark on a partnership with the Ministry of Justice to bring restorative justice to the school. She stated that restorative justice will help students to understand how to de-escalate conflict situations when they arise, how to interact with each other peacefully, how to resolve disagreements, and how to speak to each other so they can work together before it results in fights and arguments. The minister added that she doesn't believe children have been taught enough about how to handle themselves in conflicts. Recognizing that many of the students who attend the school are from volatile inner-city communities, the minister said part of the support her ministry will give the school will focus on helping students to employ conflict resolution in these communities. She said, quote, "I know that many of you live in communities and in homes in which it seems as if it's normal to quarrel and fight and shout at each other. But I'm saying to you, it's not normal, and we have to help you when you come to school to understand that there is another way that you can live and interact and have peace in your homes and your communities." End quote. The education minister was speaking to students and staff during her visit to the school on Monday morning. She was accompanied by guidance counselors, members of the clergy, and principals from other high schools in the corporate area who went to support the school in their time of grief. And the police are still pursuing a suspect in the deadly mass shooting at the Jamaica Boilers Group playing field in Spring Village in Old Harbour, St. Catherine last month. During a quarterly virtual town hall with residents of the division on Sunday, Commander of the St. Catherine South Police Division, Senior Superintendent SSP Christopher Phillips, said several statements have been recorded, including from eyewitnesses. However, the name of the suspect was not disclosed. 9 persons were shot, 3 fatally, during the September 18 incident. The gunmen were reportedly targeting one of the deceased, who the police believe was implicated in a missing firearms scheme. 2 of the deceased were employees of the poultry company. 4 workers were injured. Phillips, along with the National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang, Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson, and a team from Jamaica Boilers, led by its chairman Robert Levy, visited the community on September 21. SSP Phillips also gave an update on the August murder of Chevelle Lewis, a 31-year-old pump attendant who was shot dead at the Petcom service station on Passage Fort Drive in Portmore. She was allegedly attacked by 2 men. Phillips said persons taken into custody over the case were interviewed and released. Several statements were also collected. Lewis was from the community of Compound in Central Village, St. Catherine. Meanwhile, in his overview, Phillips noted that the police division recorded 97 murders for the period January 1 to September 30, 2022. Some 88 homicides were reported up to September 19 last year. Approximately 46% of the murders were linked to gang feuds and another 38% categorized as criminal act. The St. Catherine South Police Division includes Portmore, a dormitory coastal community of over 300,000. The government is pushing for the municipality to be given parish status. A man was killed in a dramatic incident last night on the White House Main Road in the vicinity of Big Tree White House, Westmoreland. The incident reportedly occurred about 9:30 last night. The dead man is identified as 34-year-old farmer Ricardo Jameson, otherwise called Poncha, from Lennox Bogwoods, Darliston in the parish. According to reports obtained by Nationwide News, Jameson was among persons at Dice's Sports Bar along White House Main Road when two men armed with handguns approached and opened fire at him. According to the reports, in a bid to escape injuries, Jameson ran from the bar and was chased by the gunmen who continued firing at him. He subsequently collapsed a short distance away along the roadway. It is reported that an off-duty policeman who was present and saw what was happening discharged a number of rounds from his licensed Glock pistol in the direction of the men in a bid to repel the attack on Jameson. The gunmen thereafter ran off in the surrounding area. The police was alerted, and upon their arrival, Jameson was seen lying in the middle of the road with what appeared to be multiple gunshot wounds to his head and upper body. He was taken to the Savannah Lamar Public General Hospital. And a businessman was shot and killed yesterday at his establishment in Great River, Hanover. 62-year-old Garth Carr, otherwise called Spider-Man, who was also a chef, was shot multiple times. About 6:20 a.m., residents heard explosions in the area and alerted the police. Mr. Carr was later found suffering from bullet wounds to his upper body. He was pronounced dead at hospital. And the St. James police are probing the shooting death of an elderly man in Long Bay, St. James on Monday morning. He has been identified as 63-year-old Duke Palmer, otherwise called Touch of Gold. Reports are that about 9 a.m., Palmer was seated on old tires in the area when he was attacked. A white Honda Fit motor car reportedly drove up, and the occupants reportedly opened gunfire, hitting him multiple times. Palmer died on this spot. The police in St. Catherine have recovered a gun and ammunition in separate incidents in the parish yesterday. The St. Catherine South Police say about 9 o'clock yesterday morning, a resident approached them on the Mandela Highway and handed them a Smith & Wesson 9mm pistol with a magazine containing 5 9mm rounds of ammunition. The weapon was subsequently seized, and no one was arrested in relation to this seizure. And a man was arrested in the St. Catherine South Police Division in relation to the seizure of one Glock magazine containing 28 9mm rounds of ammunition on Chepstow Road, Waterford, St. Catherine yesterday. The Portmore police say about 4 o'clock yesterday morning, lawmen were in the area when a premises that was occupied by the suspect was searched. During the search, the ammunition was found under a bed in a room. The ammunition was subsequently seized. He was taken into custody. However, his identity is being withheld pending further investigations. On Saturday, the police arrested and charged a woman over the seizure of an illegal gun at an event in Plantation Heights. She is 19-year-old Chrissy Lee Thompson, a cashier of a Plantation Heights address, who has been charged with illegal possession of firearm and ammunition. The police report that about 8:45 p.m., a joint police-military team carried out an operation at an unpermitted event in the community. The team reportedly saw Thompson with a knapsack on her back, acting in a manner that aroused their suspicion. She was accosted and the knapsack was searched. A 9mm pistol with a magazine affixed containing 10 9mm cartridges was found inside the bag. She was arrested and subsequently charged. Her court date is being finalized. The St. Mary police are still searching for clues which could lead them to the thieves who stole a vault from a Western Union outlet in Highgate in the parish Wednesday night. Police sources probing the incident have indicated that they have no strong leads to follow in relation to what they describe as a carefully orchestrated robbery by criminals who appear to be targeting Western Union outlets. Last week, thieves struck at the money transfer agency, removing a vault containing an undetermined sum of money and the data storing device from closed-circuit cameras. The police also said that less than 24 hours after the heist at Highgate, they were again summoned to a similar robbery at Guys Hill in the parish, where thieves allegedly stole a vault containing a substantial amount of cash. A spate of robberies have been taking place in the northeastern parish for almost 4 months, with thieves breaking into a Western Union outlet in Onotobe less than 3 weeks ago. In June, a vault containing more than $7 million was also stolen from the Western Union outlet in Arokabesa, St. Mary. One senior police source who requested anonymity said that the frequent robberies have posed a serious challenge for them. And with a rise in Jamaican-related gang activities in Turks and Caicos Islands, the territory's governor is appealing for support from the Jamaican government to bring the situation under control. The governor notes that the Jamaican cabinet was meeting and he is hoping for support from them. He reports that there had been a dramatic change in the security situation in the territory in September with the emergence of threats that much larger states have to absorb. He says the emerging threats have been linked to major attacks associated with terrorism, pointing directly to Jamaican gangs and serious transnational crime rather than international terrorism. He states that in addition to Jamaicans being the source of the problem, he highlights the fact that some Haitian gangs are also involved. In that regard, he says the recent killing of two gang leaders, one of them Haitian, had created a vacuum and allowed a predominantly Jamaican gang with a relatively small footprint in the island to reinforce from Jamaica. He also describes the ensuing violence in graphic terms, noting the use of military-grade high-velocity weaponry in the vast majority of the murders in September. These, he says, were targeted and linked to this enlarged and now emboldened gang trying to remove who they believe are the local drug and arms smuggling competition. He notes that the police tactical unit, supported by intelligence, had been pursuing these criminals relentlessly, and a heavy police presence was deployed to 5 Keys after a double murder there, resulting in the gang relocating to Dockyard, and in that unregulated development, the police came under fire from third parties. Several members of the church community in St. Anne, supported by a group of chanting Rastafarians, are calling for the reopening of Little Duns River in Ocho Rios. The groups were protesting outside the facility Monday morning. It was closed in September following a murder near the beach on August 31. Chairman of the Ocho Rios Ministers Fraternal, Hudson Taylor, says the groups turned out to express their dissatisfaction with the treatment of the property. Taylor, who is a pastor in the Church of God of Prophecy, adds that church now has to become the voice for those who have no voice. He says they are seeking an amicable solution between the parties involved. He states that while they have no issue with the development, it should not be done at the expense of the ordinary person who is unable to afford other facilities that are costly. He believes that it must be developed and made accessible to the ordinary Jamaican. In the meantime, the government's Urban Development Corporation, UDC, who owns the property, known as Belmont, advised on September 1 that access to the property will be restricted to facilitate the police investigation. It urged members of the public to adhere to the instructions of the police and security officers and desist from entering the property. For years, persons have used the property not only for recreation but also for wellness purposes such as exercise. And while residents have argued that Little Duns River was a suitable alternative to the pricier Duns River Falls, the UDC says it is not a licensed beach. It says this is because the property lacks basic sanitary conveniences and has no insurance coverage or other requisite permits in place. President of the Jamaica Agricultural Society, Lenworth Fulton, says damage estimates relating to the agricultural sector as a result of the recent heavy rains could climb higher when a true picture emerges. Mr. Fulton made the observation less than 24 hours after the island was hit by further rainfall. Since last week, Jamaica has been experiencing rains as a result of the outer bands associated with Tropical Storm Ian, and those rains have created a nightmare for farmers, especially in Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth. Mr. Fulton says the preliminary estimate of $200 million in crop damage is set to go higher. He says while farmers have received word about promised government assistance, the concerns are real, especially with regard to replanting. He says while there is still some time to replant, the financial loss is heavy, particularly in relation to crops such as lettuce, tomato, and sorrel. The president also says householders can brace for price increases for some vegetables and other crops, while hoping that any increase will not be out of reach of the average customer. However, despite the grim picture, Mr. Fulton says he remains optimistic that the farmers will witness a rebound in crop production, as not all parishes were as badly hit as others. In the meantime, Agriculture Minister Pernell Charles Jr. has confirmed that assistance will be provided to affected farmers. He says he is awaiting a breakdown to complete the assessments to determine how best to give support to those persons who have been affected. Minister Charles notes that the damage to the sector is another reminder that farmers must be resilient against shocks, as many who implemented resilient operations were spared losses. And in sports, Jamaica will continue its preparations for the Women's World Cup, with the Reggae Girls tackling Paraguay in two friendly internationals on November 10 and 13. The fixtures will be the first time that the Reggae Girls will be playing at home since April and since they qualified for next summer's tournament. The first game of the series will take place at Catherine Hall Stadium in Montego Bay, while the second game will be played at the National Stadium in Kingston. Jamaica will be using the game to continue their evaluation process of the World Cup, while Paraguay will be preparing for the World Cup Intercontinental Playoff next February. Jamaica will know their World Cup opponents when the draw takes place on October 22. The World Cup will be held in Australia and New Zealand. And that's it for the Daily News Roundup for today. I am Abigail Smythe. See you next time.
Teach them! Hey, yo, hello! Send the message and make it reach them. It's teach them. Right here, Warlord representing.
Thank you for watching. Like the video before you go. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. And remember to share the video with your friends and family. And browse the channel for more quality content. Until next time, walk good, my friends.
Teach them!